everybody, and welcome to the 6th episode of Season 2 of the Coffin Corner Podcast. I'm your host, KingNightAsp, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Richie. Richie, what's going on?
Oh, just counting down the days until the season starts.
Not too many of them left, actually.
There are not. I've got my first fantasy football draft on Friday, actually, so...
Wow.
It's getting there. Cannot wait.
It's always funny to me the way the preseason goes with football when you have a league that can actually wait till the end of preseason to draft, not expecting a bunch of delays on when they're going to actually do the draft. And so you watch the preseason and you're like, all right, I know who's going to be good. I know who's hurt. We're getting into that zone now, so that's awesome.
Yeah, most of my leagues, and I'm the commissioner of like 4 or 5 at this point. I always try to set the draft after the last cut down day, which is next Tuesday. So that's why all of our drafts are next weekend. But this league drafts early for some reason, and there's been plenty of times where people have been drafted that got hurt in the last preseason game or got cut, and it's been pretty funny. Actually, I think it was 2 years ago when Leonard Fournette got cut by the Bucs. My dad actually drafted him as like his 3rd running back in round 5 or 6, and then he ended up getting cut. So that was...
I remember that, actually.
Yeah, that was pretty surprising. But usually it's just like kickers or 5th receivers that end up cut. But yeah, I like later drafts. But I'm just excited to draft. I love fantasy football, and I'm just ready. I do a lot of mock drafts with my dad, and I'm just ready to do it for real.
For sure. Yep, I'm with you. I'm ready for mine. I hope. I don't even know what they are. I think they're both next weekend.
The ones that we are in are all Labor Day weekend, yeah. So you got another like 9 days to prepare.
Yeah, and then the other one, yep. So I'm good. I'll be ready. All right, well, starting us off, as always, we will be doing our top 5, and this week's top 5 is who we think the worst teams will be in 2023. Now, this is not a new top 5. This is actually one we did last year. Last year, we actually labeled it top 5 teams to get the 2023 number 1 draft pick. So, pretty much the same thing.
Yeah,
but,
well, the problem this year, and actually when I was making these notes, I didn't name it that way because the Panthers gave away their pick and the Texans gave away their pick. So technically, they wouldn't have the number 1 pick.
It's true. Well, I was able to pull up last year's top 5 and to see how we did. So, and it's kind of interesting. I picked the worst record team. You did not.
You did? I did not.
The worst team with the worst record last year was the number 4 team on my list, and that was the Bears, who were 3-14 for the worst record. Now, the Texans were very close, as they were 3-13-1 for that number 2 pick, but me and you both had them as our number 1 picks to have the worst record, and they did not. So they beat expectations.
They made it close though, man. Right until I think it was the last game of the season, they ended up winning for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. The funniest part is, like, if you look at your list, it's pretty much everyone that was in the middle.
Yep.
All teams in the middle.
I did. I only had one eventual playoff team on the list, which is good.
Which is better than I did, because I had 2 playoffs teams. So we both had the Seahawks at 9-8 as our number 2 worst team in the NFL. Turns out,
not see Geno Smith coming.
Geno Smith said, no. They lost in the playoffs, but they were a playoff team, so that's good. I also had the Giants on my top 5 worst teams list. And with Saquon Barkley having a good year coming back from the injury, they went 9-7-1 with a playoff win. They beat the Vikings. So
yeah, that was a surprising year for the Giants.
Nope. We both had the Falcons on there with 7 and 10.
Falcons.
Yeah, 7 and 10, which was tied with 5 teams for the 7th worst record. So right in the middle.
And I had 3 of those 5 teams.
Yes. 60.
Yeah, well,
you got 50% of the 7 and 10 teams.
I had the Browns and Jets, and they both ended up 7-10. And I attribute that to Jacoby Brissett playing better than I expected, filling in for Deshaun Watson, and who was the Jets quarterback? Matt Flacco, right? Joe Flacco filled in a bit for the Jets, and they won some games that they wouldn't have under Zach Wilson. So, good for them. But we'll see. We'll see where the teams we picked this year end up.
I was having a hard time picking this list because I was thinking of what happened last year, and I kind of just went. There's a team I left off this list. I'll say it at the very end, but I almost didn't put the Colts on here and put a different team on. So when we're done, ask me what team that was.
I'm gonna guess it's the Commanders.
It's not.
Oh, okay. They almost made my list, to be quite honest. I'm up and down on how things are going to work out. But I'll start with my number 5. It's the Cardinals. And I hesitated putting them on here. Honestly, they would be higher if we knew Kyler Murray wasn't going to play. And they wouldn't be on the list if Kyler Murray was going to play. Not that I think they're going to be good. They'd end up 7 and 10, like one of those teams.
Yeah.
But I have them on here because I don't think Kyler's going to play at all. I said if he ends up playing, it'll be 3 or 4 games. I think they'll still find a way to lose double-digit games, which should put them firmly near the bottom of the NFL.
I think Kyler's going to play, and I still think they'll be firmly at the bottom of the NFL.
I know. I was surprised I saw them on your list. With you think even with Kyler, they're going to be the worst team in the NFL, huh?
They don't got nothing. Nothing. They got nothing on that team.
All right.
Well, you can name it just because you know the team.
I was going to say that's cheating. Yeah.
I'm going to say, if you were to ask me to name a defensive lineman right now, that would be very hard for me.
Actually, defensive
or their linebackers.
Well, I know they still got Zaven
Collins.
Yeah, Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. Collins is playing more of a defensive end though.
Yeah, Simmons is playing safety. So
yeah, they have a rookie defensive lineman they drafted, but I can't remember his name right now.
These are all the points I'm trying to make. They don't have a lot on that team. Name a receiver. Well, I mean, that's easy to do. Like I said, it's our team. But if you were not a fan of the Cardinals, naming a receiver not named Hollywood Brown or Greg Dortch.
I think people still know Rondale Moore from everyone thought he was going to be amazing under Kingsbury, and he's still around.
Yeah. Zach Ertz, about the only name you know, and I constantly forget he's even on the team. I don't know.
I still love James Conner.
He's going to get all the yards this year, guaranteed.
Yeah, I just love him as a player. But yeah, I mean, the Cardinals are on both of our lists. I had them at 5, you had them at 1. Spoiler alert, I'm going to give that away.
That's
and I'll just move on to my 4 then. I went with the Falcons again. We both had them on last year. I know they drafted Bijan Robinson, but I still look at Desmond Ridder and just think I can't imagine this team being good. Especially because the Saints got better in that division, I think, with Derek Carr. I like Baker for the Bucks. The Panthers should be a little bit better with Bryce Young, even though they're on my list. So I just think the Falcons, I mean, another 7 and 10 finish, sure, but my gut says they'll do worse.
Here's why they won't. Under new quarterback Trey Lance, they'll be much better than they are with Desmond Ridder.
Wow, calling his shots.
That's my prediction.
You know what's funny is I texted you about doing the top 5 the one before the season and doing predictions for the season. So if that trade hasn't gone down by then, I expect to see that prediction on your list.
Good night, Punk's hot takes. This one was waffling between the team I told you to ask me about and this one, but I still put them on here, and that's the Rams. That team is trading away everything good they've ever had. They still have Cooper Kupp and Stafford, And yeah, this team's
Aaron
not very.
Donald's still there.
This team is not very good.
Yeah, the Rams, I considered putting them on my list, but I kind of gave the benefit of the doubt to a healthy Stafford and healthy Cup that they'll manage to win a couple games.
Oh, if someone could guarantee me that Stafford would not get injured like he never did on the Lions, then I'd be all about it. But the last few years, he's constantly injured. So I think, you want me to, here's another hot take. Stafford retires after this year.
All right. I see that, though. I see that happening. Yeah, I could see that. He got his ring, and that's good. He deserved one.
Yeah.
He should have retired after last season, to be quite honest. I don't know why he would come back to play this year.
Yeah, especially on a team that's not going to be good. Trading Jalen Ramsey, there's just not a lot going on there. So that's my number 5.
And besides Cooper Kupp, I mean, Van Jefferson's not bad, but I can't name another one of their receivers.
No.
Yeah.
There was that guy Skolwarski.
Oh yeah,
Skolwarski. I can't remember.
Skwark.
No.
Well, I already did my 5 and 4. My number 3 is the Texans. I just don't know if CJ Stroud's going to have success as a rookie. I like Dameon Pierce. I like some of the pieces they have on defense. They've got some interesting receivers, but no one, really big name yet. And this is also part hopeful because the Cardinals own their pick. So if the Texans can end up with a top 5 pick and the Cardinals end up with a top 5 pick, we could have Marvin Harrison Jr. on our team next year and possibly a new quarterback.
Yep. I put him on there simply because after being the second worst team last season by a tied game, I just don't think they did enough in the draft for this year to be the turnaround. Can I see it the next year? Sure, but I don't. Maybe they end up not being the worst or one of the top 5 worst teams, but I feel like they still will be. Even though they, like you said, they do have a lot of good players, but they were number 2 on my list. So
yeah, they're building a core of good young players, and I like that they went. Their new coach is a former player. I can't remember. Is D'Amico Ryans, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's cool, and I could see them being good in another 2 or 3 years, but they're not going to turn it around overnight.
Much like this team that I have on here as my number 4, the Bears. The Bears are still going to do bear things. I don't care how many good linebackers and extra receivers they picked up. I still think they're going to be bad this year.
I've seen a lot of people mocking Jonathan Taylor getting traded to them, which that would be interesting to say the least. It all hinges on Justin Fields. I mean, this is his make or break season. Either he can live up to the hype or he's just another Ohio State quarterback bust.
Yep. I can't say whether he is or isn't because he showed some interesting stuff last year with his legs, not with his arm. So we'll see. But the Bears are the Bears.
Well, if he plays poorly, yeah, they're going to be in contention for the number 1 pick again. My number 2 is the Panthers. I don't think that team has a lot of talent on it. Watching them in preseason, Bryce Young has no time to throw. I like Jonathan Mingo as a future, dynasty type receiver, but man, that team is in full rebuild mode, and I just don't. If I had to guess which team's going to end up with the number 1 pick, I would guess the Panthers. Even though they weren't number 1 on my list for a reason.
Not even on my list.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you like Bryce Young? You think he's going to do well, or there were just 5 worst teams?
I think it was just a situation where there were 5 worst teams in my mind because I'm trying to bring up their. Is anything load? Hello? There it is. I'm trying to. This is not what I want. Panthers depth chart. There we go. Yeah, I don't see a lot on this team. That's good. So, yeah, it's just one of those situations where I thought the ones I put on were worse.
Yeah,
I probably could have switched them with the Rams, but I wanted to have one in there that was like the surprise pick. Like the Giants last year. So if that works out like the Giants, I'll be screwed again. But
I don't see the Rams winning a playoff game, so I think you'll be okay.
No, but the third one I had was the Colts. So it was. That's the one you haven't said, correct?
That was my number one. So yeah, I have not said them.
Yeah. If they trade Jonathan Taylor, that's just an even worse situation. A team that's starting Anthony Richardson, who was supposed to be a project quarterback, and it wants to trade away a top 5 running back in the NFL. Just does not sound like they want to win games. So,
yeah, that's actually why I put them above the Panthers. They're starting Anthony Richardson over Gardner Minshew, even though Minshew's played very well in the preseason. The owner is an idiot, and they're planning on trading away Jonathan Taylor. And they don't want to pay Jonathan Taylor, but they want a first-round pick in return for him, which they in turn would then have to pay that first-round pick.
Yeah,
it's a stupid move to burn the bridge to not only your best player, but one of the best players in the NFL.
And any player that wants to come to your city after this. This doesn't just affect Jonathan Taylor. Every player in the NFL sees this happening. Do you think that a halfback, if you run out of halfbacks, is going to want to come sign to the Colts because, hey, if you play well, you're not going to get paid, you know? So good luck to him. Yep. Terrible strategy.
That's why I wanted to put them as my number one worst team, because even if they don't finish with the worst record, right now they are the worst franchise in the NFL.
Yeah, so bad. So,
all right, well, I think we covered all 5 of our teams.
A
little out of order, but because we had a lot of similar ones.
Yeah, exactly. They all got out there.
Yeah, we covered them. So we'll dive into news. Obviously, we already mentioned Jonathan Taylor. Officially on the trade block, he was given permission to seek a trade. They told him that he has until Tuesday to find one. I saw today that 2 teams have already made offers. They didn't say which teams, with 6 others expressing interest. So
why Tuesday? So what happens on Tuesday? Everything's fine. This never happened. Welcome back.
I think it's just because that's the day that they have to cut down to 53, is my assumption. I don't know.
Does that matter in a world where you're trying to trade a player? I don't understand why Tuesday.
Probably because they want to rush it because they're dumb. Like it's the team is the front office is mismanaging this entire situation so poorly.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous.
Next up, Jadeveon Clowney and Ronald Darby both signed with the Ravens on 1-year deals. They're just names that I recognize, so I thought I'd throw them in there.
Clowney, the traveling player at this point, just signing wherever we'll sign him every season.
Yep. Yeah, that dude came out of college so hyped because of this one viral moment where he blew up the running back in the backfield and then never
stripped the ball, grabbed it. Yeah, that was a great play.
Yeah.
Never did
much. It was
much.
a great play. But that went viral and made him a household name, so the Texans took him at 1 overall and then has not really been worth it.
Nope.
Jackson Smith and Jigba out 3 to 4 weeks with a wrist injury, so might miss a couple games. That's, not too long into the season, but notable injury. Treylon Burks for the Titans, also out. They just had multiple weeks. They didn't specify how many, so he may be back week 1.
I don't like when they don't give you numbers. That scares me.
It's really...
Kenny Golladay was out for a few weeks one time. He was actually out for 10 or something like that.
That's a few from a certain point of view.
Yeah, exactly. Could have been 20.
Yeah. Miami running back Devon Achane is week to week. I don't know what the difference is between week to week and out multiple weeks. I guess they just, however they want it, the coach wants to announce it, basically.
Yeah.
Speaking of Miami, that's where I think Jonathan Taylor should go. That he would do so well in that offense.
That would be awesome to watch.
Yeah, it would. God, all that talent. Terry McLaurin has got turf toe, but they say he'll probably be fine week 1, which is thankful.
You mean the turf in Washington was not nice to his toe?
I know, surprising, right? The FedEx Field turf hurt someone. I've never seen it happen before. That's the other nice thing with the new owner. We'll have a new stadium in like 5 years. They'll probably announce it after the season. Like that is their number one priority is getting rid of FedEx Field. Thankfully,
at least the actual field.
Well, I've been to the stadium a couple times, and it is just a shit stadium. Like, I mean, just the stadium as a whole is just a shitty stadium. Like they just need a new home.
Accurate representation of the home of this country.
Joe Mixon found not guilty, which is news because it means he's not going to get suspended, which is good. Baker Mayfield
not necessarily. How many times has what's his face? God, what's the commissioner's name?
Roger Goodell.
Block it out. Yeah, Roger Goodell. How many times has people have been found not guilty, and then he'll hand down like a 2-game suspension, and it's almost like punitive, as if, thanks for making us look into this for so long.
I think the difference here is that there's no evidence of he was accused of like brandishing a gun at a neighbor or something. But like, I remember Ezekiel Elliott was found. I forget what he did, but he was found like not guilty or the charges were dropped, but he still got suspended because there was video of it. So I think that's the difference. Is like this one hasn't gotten as much media attention because there's no video or pictures to throw up on social media. So, I think Mixon will be fine.
What was the story? Was he at his house?
He was at his house and like there was a
disagreement. And he brandished
with a
a gun. It's his property.
Either he did,
if he
or
owns
his
a gun.
Did yeah, but it's still threatening somebody with a gun.
You're on your property, and if they are fighting with you while you're on your property, what's the
No, I think it was over the fence, like yelling at his neighbor who was in their yard over the fence. Not the neighbor was in his yard. I don't know.
I still don't see how that is a law.
Well, he was found not guilty, so neither did the judge.
Okay, because I'm like,
I don't know the full story,
yeah.
But I just know there was no evidence, so it was basically he said, or he said.
Sound like a gun fell out of his sweatpants at a nightclub, Plaxico Burress.
And shot himself in his leg. Oh, man. Baker Mayfield named quarterback 1 for Tampa Bay. Good.
Yeah. Kyle
Sam
Trask,
Howell named quarterback 1 for the Commanders. Not a surprise. And then
most importantly, this last one I added on there.
The most interesting backup quarterback spot in the NFL, Sam Darnold named quarterback 2 in San Francisco, and Trey Lance probably going to be inactive on game days.
Already said they are looking to possibly trade him. And the funniest part about this headline on my notification I got on my phone for this was Sam Darnold being named QB2 spells bad news for Trey Lance. And I'm like, the fact that Sam Darnold had a chance at QB2 and the only chance that Trey Lance had was QB2, it was bad news for him from the very start. Like,
yeah.
The fact that Sam Darnold was able to sneak his way into anything in San Francisco was bad news. It didn't just start today.
It was bad when they signed Sam Darnold because it was kind of the writing was on the wall that they wanted a competition. They didn't sign Sam Darnold to make him the third quarterback.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because you mentioned Trey Lance going to Atlanta. What would you trade for Trey Lance right now?
I would be I don't know. If I'm a bad team, I'd want to trade like a second rounder.
Okay.
If I was a good team, I wouldn't mind giving up a first rounder that was towards the end of the first term. But the thing is,
you
good teams don't need. Why wouldn't he be? Do you know if he's good or not? We've talked about this before. When? Preseason? I don't put any stock in preseason, and he's played how many games? How many snaps?
Well, that's the thing. He didn't play much in college either. I think the biggest knock on him is they say that he was drafted because of his physical ability at the combine.
I want to know who's knocking him, because every person I hear talks about how it's amazing that everyone's given up on this guy who's never played.
Oh, see, I hear the exact opposite. Like, if you go on ESPN, they posted pre-draft, like, notes from GMs, and they talked about, oh, he's a physical gift, but the quarterback portion of it's not very good.
Yeah, the same things were written about Tom Brady, so I also don't put much stock in that type of thing.
I didn't know you were this much of a Trey Lance believer.
The guy hasn't done anything. He hasn't played. To dog on him now is like, there's no point. I will happily dog on a bust. There's nothing to say he's a bust. Like, nothing.
I was just curious. I mean, I'm more of the conditional pick type guy where, hey, if he leads us to the playoffs, we'll move it up around, or, if he starts every game type. I love the thought of conditional picks.
That would make sense. That would be the type of pick you should trade for him. One that says, if he starts for us this many games this season and we have this many wins, then this is a first rounder. If he does not do that, it's a second rounder, or, third to second, that type of thing. That makes sense to me. Prove it deal. But,
right, yeah, exactly.
But that's why I would offer those types of picks, because I don't feel like you're offering a high pick. This isn't like a 5th or 6th round situation to me, because the guy hasn't shown that he's bad, and you're just hoping that what's been shown bad can be turned good. This is he's played, he's been injured. Now let's give him a chance while he's not injured. And if he's bad, then he's bad. I'm not saying he won't be bad, but I'm saying that there's nothing to prove that he is bad.
No, I mean, I if you're a team like the Falcons, trying to think of another team that maybe the Rams, could look into the future. I like the idea of taking a shot on them, but it would definitely be a conditional pick for me.
I saw backup to Miami as an option. I've seen a few. I just can't remember what all of them were.
The Vikings were another one too, because I think he's from Minnesota. So I've seen a lot of people. He go to Minnesota and back up Kirk Cousins. But I'm curious to see if he gets traded by Tuesday. I don't think they'd outright cut him. But
no. Well, if they did, that I'm positive there would be a ton of interest in him.
It would be very interesting. But yeah, I don't know, something fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So let's dive into our week 2 review. We'll start with the Thursday night game, which ended in a tie, Browns and Eagles. Really, the only thing I looked for in this game was how our buddy DTR did. Not as exciting as week 1, but 13 of 25, 164. I believe he also ran a bit though. Let's see. 4 carries for 18 yards. So still, in my opinion, gonna make the roster over Kellen Mond.
Yeah. I mean, he's just so good. He'll be good.
Yeah. The other fun stat from this one that I noticed was Austin Watkins Jr. on the Browns had 14 targets. That was a lot of targets.
Holy smokes. And Anthony Schwartz had 10.
Yeah. Well, it's a 2-man crew out in Cleveland in the backups, I guess.
Yeah.
Panthers, Giants. Again, I watched some of this game. Bryce Young, and it's not all on him. That dude's not getting any time to throw behind that line, but he was 3 of 6 for 35 yards. Daniel Jones actually played very well, 8 of 9, 69 yards and a touchdown. A lot of people think Daniel Jones is going to take another big leap forward this year. The Giants rookie receiver Jalen Hyatt, 4 for 35 and a touchdown. And then my guy, Bryce Ford Wheaton, got some catches this week, 2 catches for 24 yards.
both the targets, both is thrown to him. He caught.
Yep. He caught both his passes. I don't know if necessarily he's done enough to make the roster, but it's another one that I'm gonna watch to see where he ends up on either a practice squad or maybe sneaking onto somebody else's team because I'm just rooting for him.
Khalil Pimpleton also with 2 catches. I've been watching him all preseason as well. At least
he's
his
an
name.
ex-Lion, right?
He was the undrafted rookie that was on the Lions on Hard Knocks last year. The one they had to cut. And
that's right.
He was just a really nice guy. Really short guy. But,
Yeah.
he was on their practice squad all last year. So, he hasn't done anything this preseason to say he shouldn't still be on their practice squad, not their active roster. But it's nice to see him still doing something. Because he still gets paid being on the practice squad. So that's
exactly.
money in his pocket.
The other thing for the Giants, Sterling Shepard played and caught a pass, and I don't remember the last time like Sterling Shepard's always a name that I know for the Giants, but I feel like he's missed like a lot of last season. I don't know. Maybe I just don't remember him doing anything last season, but I feel like he missed a lot of last season.
He did a lot. He did decent last season. He was one of those mid-season waiver wire.
He played 3 games last season.
Or maybe I'm thinking
and
of the season
7
before.
in 2021. So yeah, he's only played 10 games the last 2 years. So
who was the other guy they had then last year? Anyways.
Yeah, I know they've got a bunch of different receivers. The Giants just have a bunch of names, just a whole bunch of names on a sheet.
Yeah, all of them about the same.
Bengals Falcons also ended in a tie. I mean, it makes sense. Don't play overtime in the preseason. Desmond Ridder, 7 of 9 for 80 yards, but an interception. Still not terrible for him. And Bijan Robinson, his first action, only had 4 carries, but he got 20 yards. And he also had 1 catch for 6 yards. Nothing below it out of the water, but in his first preseason game, averaging 5 yards a carry is still pretty good.
Your boy Tyler Heineke.
I'm curious to see if Ridder struggles if they don't turn to Heineke for a little bit. I just like it because he's from Atlanta, so it's nice to see him playing for his hometown team.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. The other thing, Chase Brown, who I believe is the Bengals rookie running back that's going to be backing up Joe Mixon, 9 carries for 18 yards, so not a great average, but at least a name to know in fantasy because he'll probably be the number 2.
Scored at least.
Yep, got a touchdown. Short yardage. Jags Lions. Big one for me in this one was Tank Bigsby because I keep hearing a lot of talk about Tank Bigsby actually stealing some of the carries from Travis Etienne. He had 13 carries for 70 yards in this game. And then my only other note is that Nate Sudfeld is still garbage.
Oh, he's bad. He's real bad. Lions couldn't do anything in this game.
Who is their other backup besides Bridgewater?
There's another one. They have Hendon Hooker, but he's hurt.
Oh, that's right. So Sudfeld will probably still make the roster as a third quarterback.
At least until Hooker's back.
Yeah.
If they keep 3. But we'll see. They didn't keep 3 last year. It was just Goff and Sudfeld last year. So it might just be Goff and Bridgewater this year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, Nate Sudfeld, man, just...
And, Teddy Bridgewater did not look great, but he had only been there a week. Nate Sudfeld's interception that he threw was so bad. I don't even know what he was throwing to. He sailed the ball over a receiver and behind that receiver. So the guy had cut into the middle of the field, and Sudfeld threw it about 10 yards over where he had made the cut. Like, either it was a bad route or the worst throw ever. Probably a mixture of both. So, anyways.
Yeah. Probably miscommunication and then just a terrible throw.
Yep. And then on the Okwara boys watch, neither of them got a sack. So they're back to that. If they don't get sacks, they're just guys again.
They're just there.
Yep.
Well, Bears, Colts. Really, the only thing in this one, again, Gardner Minshew, 13 of 15, 107 yards and a touchdown, played very well. And yet they're just going to roll with Anthony Richardson. There was no competition, I guess.
Anthony Richardson didn't even play.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Obviously, he does not need any practice.
Yeah. Yeah, your project quarterback who should be playing in the preseason. No, gotta keep him fresh for week 1. And then, Minshew, who playing very well, should have been thrown out there in week 1 to, give Richardson some time to learn. No, just gonna let Minshew sit on the bench.
Yep. Crazy.
Ridiculous. Another fun one from this one. I did not realize Jake Funk was on the Colts. I think he was drafted by the Rams. I thought he was still on the Rams. I just like that name, Jake Funk.
I do find it hilarious that Sam Ellinger was their leading rusher.
Yeah, when you don't have, that's why they don't need Jonathan Taylor.
They don't need Jonathan Taylor because they're just going to put their backup quarterback in. Yeah. Third string quarterback in as the running back.
Yeah, why not?
Kenyon Drake, 3 rushes, 5 yards, still not making himself look too great.
He's still around though.
It's true.
Chiefs Cardinals. This one was just ridiculous for the Cardinals. First thing, rookie receiver for the Chiefs was Shea Rice, 8 catches, 96 yards, led the team with 9 targets. That's what you want to see out of a rookie receiver in the preseason, getting a lot of work. But the real big thing in this one to me was just the combined stats of all 4 Chiefs quarterbacks in this game. They combined to go 31 of 38, 393 yards, 3 touchdowns for a quarterback rating of 136.1. No one in the Cardinals defense, first, second, third, fourth, no stringers, not a single string could stop a single quarterback for the Chiefs, including one guy, Chris Oladikin, whose name I've never seen before in my life.
Never even heard of him.
Shane Bacall, I at least recognize that name. He was a perfect 10 for 10. But yeah, their 4th quarterback, never seen his name. He goes 4 for 5 for 63 yards. After doing well against the Broncos in week 1, the Cardinals defense was extremely disappointing in this one.
They bamboozled us. And this is exactly what I was thinking about this team, is that they're going to look competent against bad teams and maybe win some and lose some others, and then just look absolutely ass against good teams.
Yeah.
And the preseason seems to be no deterrent from that. So,
yep, that's probably pretty accurate. Again, Colt McCoy, 5 for 8 is not a bad stat, but for 25 yards, averaging 5 yards a pass, that is check down city.
He cannot throw the ball.
Yeah. I like to call quarterbacks like that Captain Checkdown. That's I called a guy that one time years ago. My dad loves that term.
Well, let's see. Peyton Manning in his last few years. Joe Flacco.
He had no arm strength. It originated from a Carson Palmer when he was with the Raiders. Actually, I lost a Monday night football game. It was fantasy football, and Monday night he threw like 12 passes to Darren McFadden, because all he was doing was checking down all game. So I clearly will never forget that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I see Colt doing that quite a bit in when he's starting, but the Cardinals still said they have not decided who's starting week 1. So Clayton Tune may end up just starting week 1.
It's true. Because when Gannon was asked how Colt McCoy was playing well enough to be the number 1 starter, and he said, "Oh yeah, he's playing well enough. We're not sure yet for sure that he's going to be the starter, but he's definitely showing us he did the whole like butter him up for no reason thing." And I was like, all I heard in that was Colt McCoy is not guaranteed. And that's all I wanted to hear, because what are you doing with that guy?
Yeah, you know what Colt is. At the very least, put Tune out there and see what he can do against the Commanders week 1. To make that game even more interesting for me is if it's Tune starting for the Cardinals. That would at least give them a jolt of energy and a fun reason to watch. You know what you're going to get when you watch Colt, but hey, you never know what you're going to get when you watch Clayton Tune. So,
No, which makes it more fun to watch.
exactly. Dolphins, Texans, Tua played 5 of 7, 61 yards and a pick. Not terrible. Don't like the interception, but that's all right. CJ Stroud, 7 of 12 for 60 yards. Again, averaging 5 yards a completion, basically, or 5. Yeah, so it's like not super exciting. The big thing for Texans is no Tank Dell. Did he play? He didn't get targeted.
I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah. But yeah, after a huge week 1 in the preseason for Tank Dell, he just disappeared.
They're like, have a break.
Yeah. And then for the Dolphins, Salvin Ahmed, who I had forgotten. It's a name that you know, but you forget is on the team. 12 carries for 99 yards, also had 4 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. So he had himself a heck of a day.
Oh, yeah. Good game for him.
Yeah. Bills, Steelers. Kenny Pickett went 3 of 4 for 43 yards and a touchdown. Another good short preseason game for him. He's looking like he's going to take that big year 2 step that quarterbacks always do in their second year. They always seem to play better than as a rookie, obviously. And I mean, Pickett, at least in 2 preseason games, looking good.
It's good. I like Pickett. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and I like George Pickens. I think him and Pickens could develop a really good chemistry into a really good combo.
And just the names, it works.
Pickett and Pickens.
Pickett to Pickens.
Pickett to Pickett. Can't even say it fast.
No, it's a tongue twister.
Yes. Bucks, Jets. For the Bucks, they've named Baker Mayfield the starter, but Kyle Trask actually played well in this game. 20-28, 218 yards and a touchdown. For the Jets, really the only thing I looked at was my boy Israel Abanikanda, 4 carries for 30 yards. Probably one of the last times we'll see him run because he's buried on that depth chart now with Dalvin Cook there.
Yeah.
Patriots, Packers, Jordan Love. Again, people are heaping praise on Jordan Love. He went 5 for 8, 84 yards and a touchdown. Everybody's, of course, commenting that he's clearly going to be just as good as Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, you never asked me.
Oh, you're right. I didn't ask you who was your. I'm guessing I know who it is now since you just remembered. But who was the other team you were thinking about putting on your worst teams list?
Oh, I really wanted to put the Packers on there, to be honest. I almost did. Actually, I had them on there, and then I took them off and put the Colts on.
Well,
but the Packers were the one.
The Packers are a very interesting team this year because if you listen to the national media, they're going to win the division again because Jordan Love is clearly the next Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Jones.
Oh no, Jordan Love, MVP candidate Jordan Love.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who else is on that team?
Yeah, it's all about the quarterback. That's all they. Doesn't matter. They don't need.
Listen, I think I know about football as well, and I make predictions, and you saw what our predictions were as well. So, whatever they can say, whatever they want, that's fine. The Cowboys are gonna win the Super Bowl too.
They get paid to make terrible predictions, and we just do it for fun.
I know, right? You want to pay me to say dumb things? I can do that too.
Yeah, I can tell you why Sam Howell's going to win MVP if you want.
I'm gonna say the Patriots never were bad. You're just not looking at them right.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, 4 carries, 27 yards. That's a pretty good average for him. Zeke did not play. I'll be curious to see if he plays in week 3, but I doubt it.
Wonder why that is.
Probably because he's Ezekiel Elliott and said, I don't want to. Titans, Vikings. Malik Willis played the entire game for the Titans, which is weird. Maybe
It's almost like real
he's gonna
football.
Yeah, I mean, he only attempted 17 passes, so not a lot of work for him.
But Nick Mullins almost played the full game too for the
He did?
Vikings. So anytime I see that name, I think of the hot dog eating guy. Julius Chestnut ran for 98 yards and a touchdown for Tennessee.
Oh yes,
But Joey Chestnut was not playing.
Julius Chestnut's brother. Malik Willis did have 11 carries, 91 yards, 10 of 17, 85, one touchdown, one pick. I mean, I'm curious to see, I can't remember their rookie's name right now, but he'll probably play all of week 3 is my guess is what they're doing. And then Tyjae Spears, who's a guy that I'm watching as a Derrick Henry replacement, 7 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown.
Will Levis is who you're thinking.
Thank you. Yeah, Will Levis. I think he'll probably play all week 3.
That'd be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah. All right. What's next? We got Broncos 49ers. And we talked about Trey Lance. The funny thing is, if you look at his stats in this game, 12 of 18, 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, you'd think that's not terrible. But yeah, they just are already done with him, I guess.
Led the game-winning drive, didn't he?
I believe he did. Yep.
Yeah.
I believe he did. Yeah. Another one, Javonte Williams, back for the first time since tearing his ACL last year at 3 carries for 12 yards. He also had 4 catches for 18 yards. He is a big potential breakout running back in fantasy football because of the Sean Payton offense. So something worth watching.
Jarrett Stidham's a rookie, right? No, he's not the rookie. I'm thinking of
Jarrett Stidham?
Stetson Bennett is who I'm thinking
Stetson Bennett for the Rams, yeah. The other thing for the 49ers, Brock Purdy played for the first time since his arm injury, went 4 or 5 for 65 yards. So, clearly their starter, which is just crazy to think about Mr. Irrelevant being the unquestioned starter for that team and former number 3 overall pick Trey Lance being moved.
Just forgotten about.
It's just, well, it's all like, it's also, you look at like the scouting of quarterbacks. Like Trey Lance was the third he was the third quarterback taken. And then Brock Purdy literally almost went undrafted. And yet he's their clear-cut choice. Like, it's just...
They're number 1.
I don't know, man. It's such a weird situation.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of quarterbacks, especially former 49er quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo played for the first time for the Raiders, went 4-4 for 39 yards. And then extremely hyped backup Aiden O'Connell, 11 of 18, 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had himself another really good outing.
That's 2 in a row. Vegas didn't play. They've only played 2 games. Okay. For some reason I was thinking of 3. But the 2 games that guy has played, he looks crazy good.
Very well. Yeah, he has played very well.
Even Stetson Bennett has good stats there. He had an interception, but 15-24, 142 yards. I'll take that. Yeah. And he ran for a touchdown.
He's looking all right. He's looking all right for the Rams. We mentioned Trey Lance. They need a future starter behind Matt Stafford. I mean, everybody knocks on Stetson Bennett because he's quote unquote old, but he's only 25. So, still get plenty of time out of him.
That just means he's 30 when you're having to pay him off his rookie contract. And you're like, nope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks for the 5 years. But, yeah, interesting at least for the Rams and Raiders both have pretty interesting rookie backup quarterbacks. Cowboys, Seahawks. I don't like either one of these teams. The only thing I want to talk about is Holton Ahlers. 7 of 13, 61 yards. He also had 7 carries for 42 yards. I really hope he makes that roster.
Yeah, he's been really good the first 2 games.
Yeah, and he played as the third quarterback behind Geno Smith and Drew Lock, so I mean, I'm if they keep 3, he should be one of them, and I'm just rooting for that Viking because he will burn my village to the ground if I don't.
Yes, you do not want to mess with him.
Yeah, do not get on his bad side. Zach Charbonnet, 3 carries, 31 yards. That's interesting because I believe Kenneth Walker is going to miss some time to start the season, I believe. So interesting to see what Charbonnet does.
Not interesting as well to see that Brandon Cooks tore it up again.
He did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait a minute. I don't see his name anywhere. I didn't even see it last week.
Well, my guess is that they probably sat him because he's so good.
Doesn't need to play. Yeah.
They didn't want to risk injury. You know what's funny? And it's Jalen Tolbert, who was their leading receiver, 4 catches, 66 yards. I forgot about this guy. Yeah. And then I saw his name and I'm like, he was a 3rd-round pick last year. Like, wouldn't he be a breakout candidate for them? But then they go and trade for Brandon Cooks? Like, why? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Interesting decision making, to say the least. Saints Chargers, again, not much in this one. Derek Carr didn't play. Justin Herbert didn't play. Not a lot of starters played anywhere for these teams. But Saints rookie running back Kendre Miller, 10 carries, 23 yards, and a touchdown. Again, he's just one of those running backs that you hear hype on that, with Kamara out for 3 games, him and Jamal Williams will be the 2 runners, and if Kendre Miller can impress, yada yada yada. So,
notice how Jamal Williams didn't play.
Oh yeah,
starter.
Yeah,
they're not. They don't. Kendre Miller may get some carries, but they're planning on using Jamal until.
Oh, I think Jamal Williams will still get some usage even when Kamara comes back. I think he's.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I just don't see Kendre Miller stealing time from Jamal. That's why they didn't even play him.
No, I think Kendre Miller's more of he'll be the number 3, so he'll back up Jamal those first couple of weeks. But Jamal Williams is their clear starter for those first couple of weeks. But when he gets tired, they'll put Kendre Miller in.
Hold up, the Chargers have a guy named Pokey Wilson. That's an awesome name.
Yeah, I guess they do.
Pokey Wilson. Also, their quarterback for the whole game, Easton Stick. Every time I see that guy's name, I think of his name is just another word for baseball bat.
Easton Stick.
Because Easton is a baseball brand.
Is it really?
Yes.
I did not know that. Yeah.
So every time I see Easton Stick, I'm like, baseball bat?
It's just, that is interesting. I did not know Easton was a baseball brand. That's awesome. And just so you know, Pokey Wilson is a rookie receiver from Florida State.
Nice.
Yeah. Speaking of rookie receivers, Quentin Johnston went 3 catches, 37 yards for the Chargers. And then last game, Commanders-Ravens. This one, they beat the Ravens 25 game, I believe, undisputed streak of the preseason.
Ridiculous record. I mean, I know there used to be 4 games in the preseason, and then they switched to 3 when they went to 17 games. But even at 4 games, that's so many years.
I think it was 2018. It was the last time they lost in the preseason, or 2019 maybe. Yeah, it was a long time. I mean, it's funny because it's the preseason; it literally doesn't matter. But it's still, anytime you have a streak like that, it's impressive. It fell to the Commanders on a 49-yard field goal that I swore was going to go wide left until it meandered back in. Good game all around for the Commanders' starting offense. They played the entire first half because they wanted to see Sam Howell for an entire half. He went 19 of 25, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. Made some really good decisions, extended plays with his legs. He had 3 carries for 17 yards. And I texted you and Dave this, and I'll say it on the podcast too. As a Commander fan, I naturally want to look at this kid and think, yeah, he is our quarterback of the future. He was projected to be a first-round pick in 2021 before he went back to school. But I'm not that type of fan. I can't just be optimistic like that. Like I still look at it and think, well, he wasn't playing against the first team pass rush. Our offensive line struggled. You know what? It's preseason. You know, I gotta wait and see. I'm at least. I feel like he has the talent from what I've seen, but our offensive line's terrible. Logan Thomas, our tight ends, always hurt. Terry hurt his toe. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
yep, I have high hopes. I think he'll be all right.
I really hope that this time next year, I'm talking about how excited I am to see our offense because, you know, Hal has a great year and affirms my hopes with real in regular season play.
Stays healthy.
Yeah, that's another good one too. Everybody's got to stay healthy. But defensively, actually wasn't the first team defense. It was the backups. But they looked like crap against the Ravens on the first drive. They basically just let them march right down the field. And then they did it again at the end of the second quarter. The Commanders scored, and then the Ravens scored again in like 15 seconds. So concerning for our defensive depth, absolutely. But
yeah,
other than that, it was just exciting to see them win the game at the end of at the end of regulations, but damn near close to end the Ravens' undefeated streak. It was exciting.
Well, I definitely had to look in. I have, just like last week, I've been looking at the defensive stats for the teams, and they have some of the lower end on the defensive stats. No sacks, no tackles, one tackle for loss. But you know which team had the most sacks this last week? Kind of surprised me. It was in the first game that we talked about. The Browns with 6 sacks. That was the highest, and the next highest was 4. They had 6 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 61 tackles. Their defense was playing well that game, even though they tied it. So,
yeah, he interesting.
Because you know what, everybody? The one position I do not ever scout for fantasy football is the defense. So after the preseason's over, I'm gonna have a good idea of who's doing things.
If I play in a league that still does defense special teams, I usually just take the Commanders every year, good or bad, just because it's like, you know, I want to root for my defense. If it's IDP, I will draft names I know, and then I'm usually just churning players out throughout the season as people move up and down the board, and I'm like, oh, I'll drop this defensive lineman for this defensive lineman.
I'm still glad that someone dropped Roquan Smith for nothing last season in our dynasty. I'm like, thank you.
Oh, and it's crazy too. Aiden Hutchinson's a free agent in our dynasty. I'm looking at that and I'm like, I'm just gonna pick him up. Like,
oh wow,
he's just gonna make him my defensive lineman forever.
Yeah. I'm still rolling with what's his face after his really good year. The guy, former Cardinal, now on the Panthers, I think.
Zach Allen?
No, he left last year. He was on the Panthers last year.
I don't know.
I'll tell you in half a second.
All right. Well, so that was week 2 of the preseason. Some good games, some entertaining games.
Hassan Reddick.
Week 3. Oh, Hassan Reddick. Yes, Hassan Reddick. Yeah. I thought he was on the Eagles.
Is that what it is? Eagles, then. I think you're right. Is he on the Eagles? Yeah, he's on the Eagles now.
Okay. I thought so. Because I remember
he was on the Panthers in 2021. Then he went to the Eagles.
Okay.
Weird.
Yeah, because he did really well for the Eagles last year, I believe.
Mm-hmm. After being good for the Panthers and never good for the Cardinals.
Well, because the Cardinals, I think, had him playing linebacker, and then he moved to like a pass rusher, and now he
where he played in where he played in college. Who would have known?
Not idiots. Steve Keim, that's for sure. Loves to draft people and play them out of position. All right, so we did our 2023 division winner and wildcard team projections last week. So this week we're actually going to discuss how we see the playoffs going, and then next week we'll announce who our picks to win the Super Bowl. Sound good?
I like it.
All right. I'll go first. So my teams in the AFC, and I seeded them. So Chiefs, number 1 seed, then Bengals, Bills, Jags, Chargers, Ravens, Browns. That was my 1 through 7. So my predictions are in the wild card round, Bengals over Browns, Bills over Ravens, and the Chargers upsetting the Jaguars. Because technically the Chargers are the 5 seed. Jaguars, with his division winner, would be the 4 seed, but I still like the Chargers more. In the divisional round, the Chiefs over the Chargers, Bills over Bengals, and the championship, I actually have the Bills beating the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl. That's probably just wishful thinking because I really want the Bills to win a Super Bowl, but I did it anyways.
So I'll tell you mine, and then we'll kind of go over our playoff scenarios here a little in the games. I had the Bengals number 1 seed, Chiefs number 2, Dolphins number 3, Jags 4, Ravens 5, Bills 6, and the Jets 7. It was hard to decide whether Ravens or Bills for 5, but I ended up putting the Ravens a little higher than the Bills. In the wild card round, I have the Chiefs over the Jets, the Bills over the Dolphins, the Ravens over the Jaguars, which leaves the Bengals to play the Bills, who are the number 6 seed, and the Bengals to beat the Bills in Cincinnati. Chiefs over the Ravens, and then the Bengals over the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, which is a rematch from last year, right?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs beat them last year. So
yeah.
That's a pretty good little rivalry going on in the AFC, is the Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes rivalry.
Mm-hmm. With Josh Allen just sitting there looking around like, hey, I'm here too, guys. When's my turn?
That's why I'm picking the Bills, man. They just, their fan base deserves it. I really want to see it happen. But I've got the Bills as my AFC champion, and you've got the Bengals as the AFC champion.
I did. It's funny because I have the Bengals over the Bills because they were in Cincinnati. You had the Bills over the Bengals and that was in Cincinnati as well, right?
It would be in Cincinnati because the Bengals were my number 2 seed.
Yeah, so we had the same game there.
Yeah,
just
different outcome.
Yeah. Interesting.
NFC, my number 1 team's the 49ers, number 2 Cowboys, number 3 Lions, number 4 Saints, 5 is the Eagles, 6 Vikings, 7 Giants. So in the wild card, I had the Cowboys over the Giants, the Lions over the Vikings, and the Eagles over the Saints. Divisional, Eagles over the 49ers and Lions over the Cowboys. And then the championship, I'm sorry, but the Eagles over the Lions.
Don't tell me sorry. I could see them beating the Cowboys. I could not see them who them. I could not see them beating the team I had them against. So, in my NFC was 49ers number 1, Eagles number 2, since I had the Eagles as the NFC
Division
East winner. Is that East? The West?
Yep.
Yeah,
East, NFC East. Yeah.
Yes, and then the Saints 3, Vikings 4, 5 Lions, 6 Cowboys, 7 Seahawks. I have the Eagles over the Seahawks in the wild card, the Cowboys over the Saints in the wild card, and the Lions over the Vikings. So 2 upsets there, only because the teams that were in were bad.
Right, yeah.
Divisional, I have the 49ers over the Cowboys and the Eagles over the Lions. And then in the championship, I have the 49ers over the Eagles. So that would give you a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl for me.
Mine is Bills Eagles. So we ended up not a single similar team in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I mean that's when you're going from 14 teams down to 2. That's bound to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the
And
funniest
then
part
next week,
funniest part here is the seeding, right? Because if we didn't do it this way and we just picked teams that would make the Super Bowl, we probably would have very similar teams. But doing it this way, where you have to take into account where they're playing, who they're playing, because, the Eagles just don't get to play the Seahawks, Vikings, and Saints to go to the Super Bowl,
Right.
So I like doing it this way.
Yeah, it makes it, there's a little more difficult because, like you said, it's not a matter of, well, the best team in the AFC is blank, but then you have to look at who they're playing, and it's like, oh man, if they end up playing, the Chiefs or the Bills or something like that, it's like, it's a tough road to make it to the Super Bowl. So, I do believe out of our 4 teams, at least one of them will be in the Super Bowl. I mean, Bills, Eagles, Bengals, 49ers, one of them's got to make it. But next week we will decide. We will make our picks for Super Bowl champion.
Heck yeah, let's do it. I'm in.
Awesome.
So,
all right. Well, hey, that's the podcast.
We finally pared it down to just over an hour. So
it'll get longer again during the regular season because we'll go more in depth on the game. Not super in depth, but there'll be more to discuss when the games matter.
Yeah.
But at least for preseason, we can get a little quicker.
Exactly. When the rushing list has like 2 names on it instead of 7, and the receivers isn't like 20 receivers, when you can talk about, all right, well, this guy didn't do well today, and it wasn't because he only played 6 snaps.
Right, exactly. Or, the starters didn't even play, so why bother talking about them at all?
Dave likes my my NFC prediction. You're welcome, sir.
Naturally.
All right, well, that's going to do it. Richie, do you have anything else?
No. Like I said, I've got my first fantasy football mock draft Friday, so next week, I'll share some of the people I drafted.
Sounds good. I like it. If you're listening to the podcast now and you are not watching the live stream, you can always find the live stream at youtube.com/@Coffin Corner. You can also follow us on TikTok at Coffin Corner Podcast or on Twitter, aka X, at Coffin Corners. Those are all our social medias for the podcast. And if you want to listen to the podcast, you can find it anywhere. I believe it's anywhere that you find podcasts. One of the best ways to find it is on Spotify. That's where it all originates from before it disseminates through the internet. So a lot of cool features on Spotify if you have it to listen to the podcast. But yeah, you can find it anywhere, so check us out. Until next week, when we go over week 3, what day is the cut day? Tuesday? Next Tuesday?
Tuesday. So yeah, we will be able to discuss if there are any big names cut or potential Jonathan Taylor, even Trey Lance trades.
So next week we will be able to talk about the games, the cuts, the 53-man roster cuts, any pickups that happen in that day between cuts and the podcast. We'll go over who we think our Super Bowl winners are going to be, and just a lot of fun stuff next week as well. So until then, I want to say thanks to everybody for listening to episode 6, and we will be back next week for episode 7 and the end of the preseason. So until then, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.